My mother's name was Mary, a plain old name. But in society, propriety would say Marie. But it was Mary, Mary, long before the fashions changed. There is none so fair as can compare with her grand old name. My mother was a great mother. She was a great-grandmother, too. She was born in 1887, 1887, 1897, I'm going to have to correct that. The last of 10 children. She was the youngest. She had an older sister, just by a couple of years, and Aunt Fanny. And Aunt Fanny was always fun and loving. We loved Aunt Fanny. But my grandmother lost her life when she was 15. And she had lost 2 husbands before that. And then when she remarried, she had my mother and Aunt Fanny. And, oh, I lost what I was going to say.
Well, let me ask you,
clear this up.
let me ask you, your grandmother lost her life when she was 15 or when your mother was 15?
When my mother was 15.
So when your mother was 15,
She didn't lose her life, she died, you know.
okay, so when Grandma Hook was 15, her mom died.
Her mother died, and she moved in with an uncle, Uncle Charles and Aunt Kate, and she moved from Glen Burnie, where she had lived with her mother and older brothers and sisters. And at 15, she went to work for Wakefield Furniture Company. And although she was not really a sports person in the fact that she lived on the Chesapeake Bay, but actually never went swimming. She wore the same old, very proper bathing suits to play on the beach. And for some reason, she never learned to ride a bicycle. But my mother could shoot a deer every year she went hunting with my dad. And she was a great fisherman. She loved camping, and so we did a lot of that. And she was a wonderful cook. She always had wonderful meals on the table for us. She was a great housekeeper. She cared for us children.
I think you said she
would
would.
in the summer and made homemade bread. All the things people did at that time of life.
I think you said she was a great seamstress too.
Oh, that's what I'm trying to remember. She was also very good with handwork. She made wonderful afghans and homemade quilts and embroidery work. She's well known for her beautiful pieces. And I believe I'm correct in saying that all of her grandchildren, all of her children, all of her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren received one of her afghans over the times. So why don't you stop for a minute? My mom and dad met in Washington, D.C. when my mother's best friend married another soldier who was my dad's friend. They were married in 1917 in Washington, D.C., and he went overseas. When he came back, he was stationed in Virginia for a while and then sent to Texas in the military. My mother's first son was born in Pennsylvania, not because they expected him to be, but she lived in Texas, and she got homesick. But her family was not, there was no one to go to. She wanted to go home and see my dad's mother, So she went to Pennsylvania on the train and stayed with my grandmother and was getting ready to go back home again to Texas to have my brother. And lo and behold, he was born in my grandmother's upstairs bedroom. My grandmother delivered him.
That's grandmother Rebecca.
Yes. And my mother, I can't remember what else I was going to say. I really don't know a lot about the history of my mother's family, except that well, there's no written document of any kind. It was handed down from generation to generation that one of my forefathers, as a boy, was a water boy on the steps of Fort McHenry during the war.
Civil War.
No, not the Civil War. The Revolution.
Oh,
He was it was Fort McHenry was where the Revolution was.
Oh.
Yeah, he was a water boy there.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. I'm
So,
out.
and so grandma's mother was married 4 times,
Yes,
and grandma and Aunt Fanny had the same mother and father,
yes.
and he was the 3rd husband.
He was the 3rd husband. And the 4th husband, who became my mother's stepfather, was actually her uncle.
Okay, which was pretty
It was
typical.
very common in
Yeah.
those days. Is buried in Glen Burnie, the cemetery of Glen Burnie, along with Aunt Fanny.
This is Grandma Hook's mother.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
no, Grandma
My-
Rebecca.
my mother and my grandmother on my mother's side
Okay,
is buried at Glen Burnie. And I don't know who else in the family, but so is my, well, that's all I know about. Anyhow, it's a family cemetery, and my grandmother's buried there. And people before her, I'm sure.
oh, so there would be a lot of history there.
Oh, I think so. I think so. And I don't know how many records are, but, because when I don't know if you're still recording this.
Yes, I am.
Well, I was just going to tell you, take me to turn it off. Aunt Fanny died. Janet called me to tell me that her mother was gone. And I said, well, do you know where our grandmother is buried? And she said, yes, she says, right here where my mom is buried. So it was a family cemetery in Glen Burnie. Which I'm not sure. I think Glen Burnie must be like San Diego and La Jolla or something, It probably was open land a lot when they were born, but nowadays I'm sure it's all grown up. But one thing I can say is that I can remember put this on the recorder.
Okay,
When they were little, and she lived on the farms with her mom and dad and older brothers and sisters. They lived near Frenchman's Creek, and they could go out, and sometimes they would find cannonballs
from the Revolutionary War or the Civil
or
War?
whatever war was there. Yeah.
Oh my
They're
gosh.
telling us that he found cannonballs. So she lived in a pretty historic area of our country.
Yes, she
Both
did.
war. Still is.
Yeah. She went to work when she was pretty young.
15. When her mother died, she went to live with them. And that meant no more school, and she went to work at Wakefield's, and she worked there, as far as I know, until she and my dad left the area.
And Wakefield's was what kind of a business?
I think it was a furniture company. And I think she worked in the lamp department. Now, I don't know, it was rather for sure whether it was, she was in the process of making lamps, you know, or selling. But I'm pretty sure it was Wakefield's, and that she had something to do with the lamp division of it. I think Wakefield Furniture is a pretty well-known, used to be a pretty well-known brand of furniture.
We could probably look that up.
Oh, one other interesting thing about her now is that when she went to work, she rode the streetcar, I guess is what it was. Or, you know, whatever they called it. Anyhow, that's her transportation to work. She was on the same time thing as Senator Taft.
Oh,
He rode the streetcar to work too.
they were on the same streetcar.
They were on the same streetcar.
Oh
when they
my
were going to
goodness.
work.
Oh my goodness.
But they were ordinary people then.
Yeah.
You don't need to put all that in there. Okay, that's enough. That makes me tired.
Okay. All right. Good job, Mom.